Now we have few more minutes before we conclude and close. I think we can open the floor for any questions. You can raise your hand. Very specific question to any specific panelist as well.
My question goes to the Anita and Arjun sir. Around 20 years ago, when I was studying in our secondary school, it was said that if rural drinking water supply, education, road access, and the electricity are provided to the rural area, people might stay over there. Now, once I visited the most of the rural area, all these are facility available there, but most of the houses are empty, and schools, almost government school, don't have number of students that is provisioned by Nepal government. My question is now, both of you are from India, you know the situations like most of the place of the India is similar to our country. And Arjun sir, you are working the long time in the Nepal, you are also working in the rural reconstruction, many part of the country, you know better. Now we are talking about the reform of our oldest Tribhuvan university, where there is the one department we call it the rural development. Now, same department is also facing the lack of student over there. What would you want to suggest to the Nepalese government that they can start to work in university, in the education system, so that Nepalese youth can start to see dream in our country? Otherwise, within the 2050, almost our rural area is going to be the desertifications or the, it's called the forest, or it is called, what it's called is the, most of the hubs or shops over there. It's very difficult to find out the road over there. So, please, I think it's the right time to talk about our education system so that our youth can start to see the dream over here. So I would like to request you, please give us that point that can we start to talk as an agent in the society and the country. Thank you.
So just a questions to all of the speakers. There seems to be an underlying assumption that people living in the rural area wants to have the reconstructions. I mean, we all know that those people has been living there for generations. They have their own living conditions, living well-being, and the way of life. So if we do come in to do the revitalizations, we cannot make the assumptions that everyone will be agreed to them. So I was hoping that some of you would be able to actually address one of the crises is really to be able to persuade. I think you may want to do the persuasion for them to accept any kind of a reconstruction plans that you may have. So what kind of a persuasions that you need to do in order for them to come on board? Another thing is that I may be making an assumption as well. I mean, the whole idea for reconstruction is precisely because the rural areas now have the rich resources that we may need to do more development. I'm not saying development is wrong, but coming from a sustainable development goals, how is that be able to balance out this kind of development on the one hand, and also to preserve, I mean, coming from Malaysia, most of these cultural values, traditional values, is still very important for us and also for a lot of communities, and most of them coming from the rural area. So they will also want to preserve that at the same time to do the development. So how do you balance that out? Yeah,
Thank you.
All. Thank you.
My question is actually goes to Dr. Karki. And yeah, maybe other panelists also could respond, but especially my question goes to the Dr. Karki. While we're talking about the rural reconstruction, we mostly talk about the development agenda or the infrastructure development, economic development. So this is somehow it's about going well. But my concern is, while we're talking about the rural reconstruction, it's not only about the economic growth. It's somehow, not somehow, but it's mostly related to our socio-cultural reformation also. And while we see in the Nepal, then we can see the migration, our youth migration is very high, and the fertile lands are barren, and the food insecurity is getting growing day by day, even in the Karnali, even in the Tarai. And the next, my question also relate to the earlier one, like in Nepal also, if you see the schools or the college, then you cannot find the mostly like earlier there was more section like 3, 4. Then now the one section is running over the school and college. Our youth students are going outside for the further higher education. So in this context, actually, how we can reconstruct our socio-cultural means, socio-cultural status or the youth, how we can stop our youth student to be in Nepal so that we could culturally reconstruct our community. You earlier mentioned about the capitalism. Yes, the capitalism has also like the digitalization has violated our social relations. So how we can even like our social relations have been more robotic rather than the humanitarian feelings. So how you suggest as an activist or as a development organization to reconstruct or rebuild our social relations, socio-cultural relations and educations to be preserved or to be get better? Thank you.
Thank you very much. In fact, part of your question, both Nepali friend, I have answered while I spoke. So I basically I agree with you. The solution is I can share my idea, but that cannot be enough. We have to work together. We know what to be done. We understand that we have to reconstruct our villages, revitalize our rural economy, rural livelihood, that we know. But how we should really address these challenges in the changed political context is we need to sit together and discuss about it. I have some idea, but I don't think I am the best expert to give answer to your very important question. In fact, we need to really think about how the global capitalist policy is colonizing our mindset. See, long before our good friend Bandana Shiva wrote a book about monoculture of mind. The capitalist, first they monoculture our mind. And every time we think about that is the best solution for us. Prescribed, recommended by capitalists. We need iPhone, we need Wi-Fi, wherever before we look for lunch, dinner or breakfast, when we enter into any hotel or any premises, for what we look for first? Internet, Wi-Fi. Who sells this? From where it is coming? It is coming from those very critical or highly criticized institutions. So every day we are financing capitalists. Every day we are supporting billionaire. We are accustomed to do this, and we don't realize that we are supporting capitalists, neoliberal, billionaires, not poor people. So the answer of your question is education. Education in order to defend our autonomy and sovereignty. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. I find all of them very critical to our work. What you asked or what the friend from Malaysia or from Nepal had asked, that has been very critical to our work. And trying to understand what does renewal, revitalization mean in a participatory sense, trying to understand what kind of science and technology is really going to support and enhance rural capacities using a large base of rural knowledge. I mean, our farmers understand much more than what might be someone from a university who's done only something in a textbook. How do we work together? And how do we understand that knowledge? So that has been what we have tried, not to alienate, because today our education system is very selective. But in the last 15, 20 years we have worked on that. Our universities like Jawaharlal Nehru University, Hyderabad University, Jamia, Delhi universities have actually tried to see and support and even give accreditation to people who are coming from very remote areas and build very democratic classrooms, build an environment whereas people can question everything. Even when I was writing textbooks for children, small children, we are writing about people's livelihoods and questions. We are asking a young child to say, is this development? Is cutting the forest or only clearing the mines, is this development? And encouraging people to look at it from a perspective, a socio-cultural, historical perspective. I think that is crucial. When we talk about water, we don't say, oh, water is this. We say water in a desert. What is it that is, and what is water in an area where every year your house is flooded? So that empathy also creates empathy for people across the country, even urban people who think forest is only for a safari visit. So I think education must really understand through a multicultural perspective, through different lives, through diversities, through harsh realities that anyone is facing, question that, not to infantilize education, that, you just paint a rosy picture and you sing songs and everything is all right. So I think that is right from day one, and Nepal has that opportunity now to work right from the early stages to the university stage. What does it mean? And critically look at how we can use technology. Our state, like Kerala, it does not depend on software development by Microsoft. It is using open source technology. Teachers are using that technology. We are not becoming slaves of technology. So I think we have to take critically, also understand that today our technologies are being used for data surveillance, even of children. How do we resist that? That should be built into our education system. So I think there is much that we need to be working together, but your questions are crucial. It is not a question of imposing any one model of development, however progressive or however radical that model might be, but to understand and work together. And knowledge and culture and language and identity are very critical to this. Thank you.
I forgot one question, but I'll be very brief. The issue of food security. You have talked about food security issue in Karnali or other places. In fact, all of a sudden, we declared our food sovereign provinces as food deficit. Karnali, if you are from Karnali, if you know our rural, we have our comrade from Karnali here. Karnali was never food deficit. It was only rice deficit. So food security to our government and our policy maker was rice. There are millions of hectares of land where we can grow wheat, potato, buckwheats, which are more nutritious than rice. But we forgot about them. We didn't promote them. We didn't modernize that farming, and instead we spent billions of dollars airlifting rice from cities and Madhes to feed people in Karnali. That means we lack appropriate policy. First time I was in Europe in 1991 in the Netherlands. I was served breakfast, potato in breakfast, potato in lunch, and potato in dinner. And they are white, European, and they were not called poor. In our provinces and villages, if people eat potato only, buckwheat or wheat, or corn, they are considered poor people. We have to demystify this. Our villages, our communities are not food deficit. We have declared them as food deficit. You need rice. And what I have learned at this age is rice is the most harmful food item. If we compare this with the corn, buckwheat, and wheat and other indigenous, locally grown food. Thank you very much.
So I think for rural reconstruction, now we talk about rural revitalization. First, we need to look at it. It's not purely some economic development. It's holistic. It's looking the realization of national strategy, for example, eco-civilization. So eco-civilization is looking not only for harmony living with coexist with nature, but also looking at material civilization, which we see to meet the basic needs of the people, zero hunger and their shelter. But also talk about political civilization is talking about whole process democratic people's participation. But spiritual civilization also to respect the local knowledge, to adopt this and build your own local resilience. And social civilization talking about equity, equality, and justice. So all this are the foundation for us to achieve the eco-civilization. So what we are talking about rural revitalization is looking at holistically how to build the rural areas are good, resilient, good for the life, but also resilient to the global impact crisis. But for people, they can make a choice. I think in China, in many other countries, the younger generations who live in the cities, they have realization, also self-awakening that what kind of life they would like to. Looking at all the negative difficulties in the cities, pollutions and the device of the generations and kind of psychological constraints, depressed, all the things. There's a wave of young generations to explore different alternative of life, sustainable living in the rural areas. So they have a choice. And what we will do is to create a conducive environment and support system for this who would like to pursue a new life in the rural areas. As we also shared, rural areas is a big areas in Asian countries. This is the foundation of the safety, foundation for our livelihood for majorities. So if we can achieve that what we can build our own strengths. Thank you.
Let me answer your question by telling you a story. Once a time, I was in Mexico. The local scholar discussed the standardized poverty, how to increase the money income for these poor people. Because at that time, similar to Nepal, large number of the young people from the Mexico countryside moved to United States. Now they still be there. But when the young people move out, means that there will be no labor in Mexican agriculture. So the Mexican agriculture became transnational company, take the land from Mexico. They built up this big farm, use the machines, not use the labor. And then who is benefited? That is the root question. And then when these laborers, as migrants, move to the United States, and then they give the savings back to their country, and then make their country do have the hard currency to buy food. And originally, Mexico is the country for self-reliance agriculture, but became more and more rely on the foreign trade, rely on the food input. So that is a very big change. When they input the food, means that the labor price increased. The labor price increase means that they cannot have the industry, because that you originally have a rich labor forces, but now you are short of the labor, and then your labor became high price, and then you cannot industrialize. That is a Mexico situation. So they only ask to increase the standard, to increase the cash for these poor people. They cannot solve the root problem. And then the Egypt, similar. when the Egypt facing the challenge of American 2008 financial turmoil in Wall Street, and then American used the QE, means that large amount of these American dollars printed out, flooded to the world markets to increase the food price. And then, like Egypt, when this country need to large amount of import the food, certainly they cannot pay the hard currency because the price increased. So, and then short of the food supply, make the local chaos. And then there is a so-called colorful revolution, one by another, along this the coastal area of the Mediterranean Sea. So that is a lot of things happen. If you cannot exactly to pay attention to the rural revitalization, you will have a disaster. That is not exactly the economic, especially not such kind of economic regulation. It's the safety of your people, of your country. So when we are very much emphasize the revitalization in countryside, doesn't mean that we can take benefits. We pay the investments, but we have no returns. The returns is the country's sustainability, the country's safety. That is why the national level, we make the rural revitalization to be the national strategy facing the challenge of globalization. That is a key point. One. Second key point, no one can save the marginalized population when they were in poor, because marginalized population, poor people have no ability to set up the self-capital capital investments. Yeah, they don't have the ability to have a primitive accumulation of the investment capital by the poor people. That is almost all the developing countries facing the same challenge. Is there any people can by individual households to set up any capital by themselves? No way. By poor area, also no way. So if they have no capital investments, it means that they cannot set up at least the basic infrastructure for these people, at least to have the basic transportation and the water and the livelihoods, whatever. So that is need to have another side. That is a big investments for infrastructure construction and the social construction. That must be the responsibility taken by the officials, by the governments. No matter whatever ism, you believe socialism, communism, capitalism, nationalism, whatever, you need to do something for this short of the ability for primitive accumulation of the capital investments. Okay, thank you.